Hello, everyone, and welcome to our sixth event for Home Month offered by the Office of Off-Campus Living. I just wanted to give you a little bit of overview of what Home Month is all about and tell you about a couple of our upcoming events before we jump into the main information session. So my name is Julia, and I run the Office of Off-Campus Living that is the sponsor of Home Month. And I'm joined by Ethan, Jerry, and Kendra, who are our peer advisors. So if you guys could just introduce yourselves and say hello, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Ethan.
Hi, I'm Jerry.
Hi, I'm Kendra.
Kendra and Jerry and Ethan are all here to help answer questions and provide support for off-campus and commuter students, as well as me. So if you ever have any questions about moving off campus or issues with living off campus, you can contact us by email at offcampusliving@ww.edu, or you can check out our website, which is offcampusliving.ww.edu. And we also have open office Fridays where you can just drop into a Zoom, and Ethan is the one who monitors that. So you can just drop in and ask him questions if you have any. We have a couple other events left in Home Month. So next week we'll be having our off-campus housing fair on Thursday, and this will be an opportunity to log into our housing listing website and chat directly with a whole bunch of landlords who will be there showing videos and clips and information about the properties they have to rent. And you can ask them all sorts of questions about locations and parking and pets and all of your burning questions, and also get an idea of kind of what costs are, where most housing is, and then also just kind of get an idea of whether you think they'd be enjoyable to work with. So we hope you come to that. And then our final event will be not this Thursday, but next Thursday, which will be the final roommate speed date, which is an opportunity for students to just all come together and try and connect with somebody else who is looking for a roommate for next year. So if you're interested in joining us for either of those two events, more information is on our website. So thanks. And with that being said, I will turn it over to our two guests. I'd like to welcome Corey Schleitzer and John Knutson from the City of Bellingham Police Department. And if you have questions for them, feel free to just pop them in the chat, and then we will read them out to them when there's a kind of a convenient space. So I will turn it over to you all. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Corey Schleitzer with the Bellingham Police Department. I do code enforcement, which essentially is kind of enforcing the more minor issues in the neighborhood. And so thank you for having us. And I'm here to talk about one of the biggest complaints that we have in the neighborhoods, probably the biggest, and that is litter, which is not very exciting, I know, but it gets a lot of attention. So okay. So let's see here. Clicking, how do I can't get it to move. There we are. Okay, litter. So you got to keep it clean. And can everybody hear me okay? I just switched. Okay, thanks. You got to keep it clean. And I know it may not seem like a big deal. I hear a lot of people say, oh, it's my yard. You know, who cares? Or, you know, it's my property. I can do it that I want. There's lots of reasons why you got to keep it clean. And one of the reasons is because it affects your neighbors. Nobody wants to come home every day, leave every day and look at this. And it does generate a lot of complaints. It can make property values go down and all sorts of things, create an environment where critters are coming in and out. And but basically nobody, you know, it's not very pleasant to look at. So it does affect your neighbors. So we do have laws around that. Another reason we want to definitely keep it clean is because complaints that will be generated hurt your relationships. It hurts your relationships with your neighbors, for one. For example, say you're going to have a party or you're going to have a shindig and you got to have people parking or you're going to get loud. I can pretty much guarantee you that if you have a good relationship, you already keep your property clean. you're kind of mindful of your neighbors. If you do something like have a big party or make a big mess or something, they're going to be a lot more forgiving. They'll be more likely to come and talk to you about it rather than calling the cops first. And so you want to just do your part that it'll help you out in the long run to keep that relationship in good shape. It also helps your relationships with your landlord. So if you want to keep the possibility of not getting any fines away, you still want to be able to lease again next year. You want to be keeping your property clean. You may want to check that in your lease. It's very common. There is going to be some sort of clause where it says if the landlord gets a complaint about you, that they could fine you right off the bat. It could be that, if you get a certain amount, that they could take your deposit or not renew your lease or even evict you. So you want to make sure to keep good relationship. And this is definitely one way to do so. Lastly, it can hurt your relationship with your roommates. I do hear it sometimes when I'm going around talking to folks that they'll say, gosh, I'm the only one that keeps clean, or I'm the only one doing my part. And it really starts to create stress. So it'll help everyone if when you're walking into your house, you see something, just pick it up. And then lastly, it can cost a lot of money. Like I said, your landlord can fine you just for getting a complaint, even if you think it's not a big deal. That's something they determine and you agree to when you sign your lease. So make sure you check on that and ask questions ahead of time. But that can be expensive. And like the fines that I give out, if you're not complying, not cleaning up, then those start at $250 and can be $500 a day, actually, for something that just takes a couple minutes. So in this picture, though it doesn't look like very much, it's actually very common, this exact kind of scene where there's just a little bit of garbage here and there. There's a beer can and margarita bottle and a rug and more cans here and cans, and there's a chair over here. This is very common, this kind of scene, and it doesn't seem like much, but it will generate a complaint. Yes, people do call the police over this. So help yourselves out. When you walk in after your classes or you come home after work, you see something, just grab it and toss it. So one surprise to people is that it does include the parking area, the alley, the driveway, and the sidewalks as well. Sometimes I'll hear from people, well, it's on public property. It's not, why should I have to do that? Actually, the law says that not only do you need to keep your property clean, but all the public property adjacent or right next to. So on this left photo, this is someone's shared parking area. There's a couch cushion and the fuzz is coming out, and there's cans and upturned bins, and there's cardboard, and this cardboard's here been sitting there for a long time. There's stuff over here. This is going to generate a call, and your landlord's not going to be happy. And unfortunately, yes, this is up to you to keep this clean as well. And then they're right here. I don't know if you can see all the other screens are covering it, but there's litter all up and down the alley here. So even though that alley is public access, public right of way, it is up to the nearest house, which would be this one, to keep that area clean. So a couple of big things. Please don't allow any piles to get going. On the left here, oops. This is probably from someone moving out or end of a lease, but this does happen. But believe it or not, the garbage has already been emptied and all of this is left behind. And that's another thing I'll hear when I talk to someone is, hey, well, we put it out there and the garbage company didn't pick it up. Well, the garbage company only picks up garbage from inside their actual dumpsters, their actual garbage cans. Anything on the ground is not going to get picked up. So you can't let stuff hang out on the ground. This is actually a $500 fine. It's pretty gross. There's going to be critters and raccoons and things making homes in there. And that's becomes a problem really quickly. So please don't allow this. Don't let that start to happen. And the other thing is when I do make a call about this or get in touch, we usually have to talk to the landlord or property owner. I'll try sometimes to knock on the front door just to make it quick, but we go to the landlord first. And if I talk to them, they're going to send out a maintenance person and they're going to send you a big bill for having to send out a maintenance person to come clean all this up when it should have just been done in the first place. So that's, again, please don't let this happen. Let's get out of hand. Now you just got to smash everything up and put it in the garbage cans because otherwise it's going to get pretty costly. And on the right here, again, you can't tell, I can tell because I've been looking at garbage cans more than anybody wants to. I can tell the garbage has already been emptied. It's already been, the garbage company has already come. So this is all stuff that's left over behind. And that's clearly been there for weeks. They've been driving over it. It's all gross now. And this happens, you know, maybe one bag got down and they didn't pick it up and just kind of continued. Unfortunately, yes, even though this is the alley, you do need to come out and pick this up. This is going to be a fine. Will be another $500 fine. I don't want to do that. Don't even want to have to come and harass you about that. Please just, if it's on the ground, just pick it up before it gets out of control like this. It's pretty gross and that will generate complaints. A couple other things. You do need to separate your recyclables. Now, you don't have to recycle, but I would highly recommend it, not just because it's good for the environment, but if you use the recycling, it's free and you can actually put extra recycling out. And if you do that, it'll reduce your overall bill if you're going to end up paying for your garbage. Sometimes you pay for it, sometimes you're a landlord, but I would highly recommend doing it, but you have to do it properly. So you can see here, this is bottles and cans, this blue bin. There's a shoe in here, there's a sock in here, there's potato chips and whirligig, whatever that is. There's a mop over here. This is not going to get picked up by the garbage company because it's all contaminated. And the reason why they won't take that is because if they take these types of bins and they put it in the large truck, the 5-ton truck, then they have to throw away the entire batch of 5-ton recycling because it's now contaminated. And we don't want to do that. They don't want to do that, obviously. So please help us out. You have to actually separate the recyclables. Once this happens, you need to just empty this whole thing in the trash and start over. The other thing that I didn't also learn until I started this job is you can't keep the garbage bins out past pickup day. And again, I get it. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but there is a law about it and it does generate a lot of complaints. People don't like to see this out. And the more you keep it out, the more people, someone's going to knock it over. They're going to run into it. Someone's going to come down the alley and throw their own garbage in there. And it just causes a problem. So please make sure you bring those bins back in after you're done, after pickup day. And lastly, don't dump. There's no such thing as a free pile. Please do not do that. It's considered dumping. And again, like I said before, you are responsible to keep even the public property around your property clean. So just because you put it on city right of way doesn't mean it's no longer your problem. When you put stuff out, it's considered illegal dumping. That's $250 fine right off the bat. Please don't do it. It's very expensive to take care of. And for example, I just had someone dump a huge pile and they said, oh, we'll make sure to clean up before we move. They left. I knew who they were. So they got a nice big $445 bill ticket. And then they're also going to get another couple $100 bill for the cost of cleaning it up. So please just don't do this. It hurts everybody. It gets gross. And thankfully, there is a lot of local ways to get rid of stuff for free properly, which Julia, if you don't mind putting that up now, there's lots of local organizations. I've used them myself. I'm a renter. Habitat for Humanity is one. You just go online and you punch it in. You know, I got a couch. Can you come tomorrow? And they come in and they make sure and doesn't have cooties and then they pick it up and take it away. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take it outside, which is great. So there's quite a few organizations like that. Salvation Army, a bunch of different ones that are local. They'll come pick it up for free. So please use those. There's also, OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace and all sorts. Please do those if you need to get rid of something. And again, we just, expect you and we need your help to do your part. I get it. I don't want you to have to feel like you can't ever, get a little messy if you, but if you throw a party or something, no problem. I don't expect you to go out there in the middle of the night, but the next morning you grab some coffee, then, you got to get out there and clean stuff up. So this will really reduce a lot of headaches on your part, really keep it from you possibly getting any unexpected fines or bills from your landlord. And like I said, it really helped keep your relationships and your time living there feel much smoother, much better. So thank you very much, and open for any questions, but it's pretty straightforward. So otherwise, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Corey. Does anybody have any questions for Corey? You want to put it in the chat or you can just shout them out?
I will say one other last couple notes I had is a lot of times when I go talk to some folks about garbage that's scattered on their lawn or in the alleys, some things I'll say or hear is, well, the wind blew it over. It's not our fault, or the wind blew it over to our yard. And I get that it's a windy time here. It is actually specified in the codes that even if the wind blows it over, someone else, it somehow shows up on your lawn and it's not yours. I get it. It's frustrating, but you still got to clean it up. So please, even if it's windy, someone else dumps it. You got to take care of it. You got to just you got to keep your area at least somewhat tidy. And please feel free, if you have an issue, you can't figure out how to get rid of something, give me a call. If you have another issue, as well as it's happened a couple of times that you may have learned that you're going to sign your lease months before you move in. And unfortunately, it's starting to happen now and again where you move in finally on move-in day, and there's a whole bunch of junk left behind by the last person in the driveway. There's couches and all sorts of stuff. And now you got to deal with it. That's not fair. You shouldn't have to deal with that. Just like you, the landlord has to provide a place free of litter. So give me a call. I'll be more than happy to reach out to them and say, nope, you guys got to get rid of that. That's not up on the renters to do. But yeah, we're just here to try to help and keep Bellingham beautiful. So thanks again. And I appreciate all your time.
Corey, I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
What do students do if they feel like their landlord isn't providing enough receptacles?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you brought that up. This is, again, something that'll be in your lease, whether you have to provide garbage service or your landlord does. That's now who does it. That's between you guys. That's a civil matter. But regardless of who does, you have to provide enough. So many of these, like say the homes that have been kind of remodeled and broken up into multiple apartments, or for whatever reason, they've only got one garbage can, there's 5 units or something like that. And it's just not enough. And that's causing the issue. Please let me know. There's ways that I can basically show that they don't have enough besides this garbage on the ground. We kind of a chart almost. But anyhow, yes, you do have to provide enough garbage service. And so if your landlord is not providing that, or if it's not enough, or you have any sort of issue around that, please feel free to contact me. You can usually able to keep you anonymous. I understand that concern. But yes, so I will definitely help get that expedited. So we want you to be able to do your part, and that means the landlord needs to do their part as well.
Thank you, Corey. Any other questions? Okay, I will turn it over to John. I'm just gonna share John's screen. Thank you again, Corey, for being here.
Thank you.
Just me. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay. John, take it away.
Okay.
Julia,
Well, thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
I was just letting Julia know that it's still, we're seeing presenter mode, but if John, if you don't care, then it doesn't matter.
I can definitely work with it.
Okay.
We'll wait to see if it pops back up again. There we go. Perfect. Thanks, Julia. Well, my name is John Knutson. I'm the outreach officer with the Bellingham Police Department. Thank you very much for having me. I've been with the Bellingham Police Department for over 20 years. So I'm going to talk about 3 topics today. And these are the topics that I feel pertain to students, at least in my career. These are some of the issues that have come up between citizens and permanent residents here in Bellingham, and sometimes the police. So we'll try to cover these and then have some time for questions. So being a good neighbor, one of the biggest, I would say, either misunderstandings or presumptions is that students come to Western and maybe they spend their first year on campus or maybe they move off campus and they live right around campus, and their exposure to Western really has them believing that Bellingham is a college town, which it is. But it's roughly about 18% of the population of Bellingham is Western students. And there are some neighborhoods where you may live in a neighborhood that has about 80, maybe 90% of the people around there are either associated with the college or are actually college students. And that has a very, very different feel than other neighborhoods where you might find a great rental property and you might move in and you are maybe one of like 5% of the students. So I've been to a lot of either parties or litter calls or complaints with neighbors. And when I've talked to students, sometimes their attitude is, well, this is a college town and people should just kind of get used to that. So I wanted to start off with this by just kind of creating a little bit of understanding that that yes, this is a college town, but there's a lot of long-term residents that have seen a lot of issues come and go over the year. And so depending on where you live, it is worth, I think, to understand a little bit of the neighborhood history and some of the issues. You and your roommates might be role model renters, and you might throw a very reasonable housewarming party, and a handful of people show up. But what you might not know is that possibly a lot of students had lived in that residence before you, and maybe they threw huge parties, and every weekend they were disturbing their neighbors. And so now you live there, and you're kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. So the police get involved in a lot of issues in this exact type situation where neighbors are just kind of tired of it. So I think that it's really important to understand some of those issues, and then discover the lost art of knowing your neighbors. So especially if you move into a residence that might have been problematic in the past, getting to know your neighbors is a chance for you to introduce yourself and for them to be able to share with you maybe some of the issues that have come up in the past. I've also found that neighbors who know you are much more likely to approach you and maybe ask you to deal with the litter that's blown around or the party that was too loud the weekend before. If you're on a first name basis with your neighbors, then they're more likely to solve those issues without involving the police, which is definitely what we want. We would love for you to go through your college experience without ever meeting a police officer in a negative type situation where we have to come in an enforcement type manner. So again, it's worth knowing your neighbors, but a lot of neighbors are used to college students coming and going and not necessarily investing in the neighborhood. So I don't think it happens automatically nowadays. And that's why I would encourage people to go out of your way and set yourself apart from maybe some of the renters that don't get to know the neighborhood. So the other part is be the kind of neighbor that you want in the future. When you've been around for 20, 21, 22 years, you have a limited perspective, and that perspective will quite likely change in the next 10 to 15 years. I remember being a brand new police officer and going to party calls, and it was tough for me to understand why these college parties were creating so many issues. I tended to stay up late, and I got to work shift work and sleep in. It wasn't a big deal. It wouldn't have been a big deal for me if my neighbors were throwing a party. What I didn't understand is that when you have a 2-year-old who can't sleep for the third night in a row because of a party next door, people tend to get very frustrated. I've been to college parties where I ask the people throwing the party, would you want this type of activity, or renters like yourself living next to your parents? So just try to put yourself in other people's shoes. It's kind of the golden rule, but be the kind of neighbor you want to be in the future. I'll just add to that the police really never want to show up. We don't go looking for parties, contrary to maybe popular belief. We have no issues with people celebrating and having fun with their friends. We only get called, and we only respond when we get a 911 call and a complaint about your party. So if you handle yourself in an adult-like manner, get along with your neighbors, you should have a great experience. And again, BPD probably won't show up on your doorstep. Are there any questions about kind of the intro to being a good neighbor, in particular, those topics we just covered? Okay, we can go on to the next part. Julie, are you able to go next screen?
Yeah, it seems like it's just delayed a little bit.
Okay, no problem.
Or not working. Hold on one sec.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. So crime prevention, one of my roles as an outreach officer is I go to quite a few neighborhood meetings, and we talk about the topics I'm going to cover here very quickly. We take one or two of them and do kind of a deep dive into them. So I'm going to go through these topics quickly. Again, these are issues that I've seen affect most students. A lot of students come up here without a car and they have a bike. Maybe it's a very cheap bike and it's just from getting point A to B, or maybe you came to Western because you're in love with the mountain biking around here and you have a very, very expensive bike. But in either case, a lot of students get to meet a Bellingham police officer for the first time when their bike gets stolen, and it's pretty sad. So we recommend take a photo of your bike, flip it over, and on the bottom, right under the crank or where you pedal, there is a serial number. Usually it's stamped in the metal. Take a picture of that or record it. Tuck those pictures away somewhere in the cloud or on a computer where it won't get stolen. And if your bike gets stolen, then you'll have those photos and especially the serial number. That serial number is absolutely critical for us. We recover approximately about 25% of all the stolen bikes either get turned in, found by citizens, found by police officers. And if we don't have a serial number on file, it's very difficult for us to get those bikes back to their proper owners. So once you've done that, lock your bike up with statistics in mind. Back in, I believe it was August, I went through a year's worth of stats and I looked at some of the common trends because property crime in general is a big issue in Bellingham. 37% of the bikes were not locked up at all, so obviously using a lock. But then of the bikes that were locked up, cable locks were the most common lock used, and they're just easily cut with common bolt cutters. So avoid the cable lock at all costs, and if you use it, just know that anybody with proper equipment is going to be able to get that bike in about 15 seconds. The other part is if you leave your bike in an isolated area where it's dark, leave it overnight. Anybody can even defeat a U-lock. So the best locks are defeatable if you give a thief privacy and time. And students run into that. We take those reports sometimes when a student has left a bike, maybe over a Christmas break in a darker area attached to a bike lock or a bike rack, I should say. And there's just not a lot of foot traffic. That does give people with a battery powered grinders time to defeat the best locks out on the market. So just avoid those things, keep statistics in mind. And then when it comes to your house, light up your residence, make it look occupied. There's very, very inexpensive timers you can get that will make a TV come on or make a radio come on. If anybody still has a radio, can make various lights come on. But when I was a patrol officer and I would drive around on night shift, you could easily go through the neighborhood, especially over the longer breaks. Spring break, Christmas break, and Thanksgiving are the worst because they're dark so much of the day during those times. It's very easy to tell which house is totally unoccupied. They just don't look lived in, and we do get a lot of burglaries in Bellingham. And most of the time, those thieves don't want to encounter anyone in the house. So they're specifically trying to target a house that looks dark, has no porch lights on, is poorly lit in the back, and gives them a lot of privacy and time to work. So again, make your residence look lived in. I'll just note that it is worth looking into renter's insurance. It's usually pretty cheap, but whether it's a fire or somebody breaks in, you will be covered in that instance. But crime prevention is the best way to kind of tackle that issue up front. And then if property crime occurs, you can file a report either by calling 911 and speaking to an officer, or you can make an online report. The online reporting, if you go to the Bellingham Police Department main page, one of the main tabs at the bottom is reporting, and you can find the online reporting there. If there is no suspect, if there's no follow-up that needs to be done, no fingerprints, nothing like that, the online reporting is a great, that's a great option. But if the opposite applies, there might be a suspect, there might be fingerprints, you need somebody to follow up on this, then call 911 and ask to speak with an officer. Even speaking to an officer over the phone as opposed to having them come to your house, is still a good option. So one way or another, get those crimes reported. That's really the only way we know where these crime trends are occurring. So any questions? And if not on any of those topics, if not, then we can go to the next one. Okay, so commuting safety, again, this could be an entire presentation on its own, but I will just hit some of the highlights that have come up during previous presentations. So try to take the safest routes home and always be visible. When I say safest, if you're walking and you're single by yourself, maybe safest means, you know, the most populated, somewhere that you could be walking and yell for help if you needed it and somebody's going to hear you. But if you're on your bike, maybe safest means, you know, the road with the best bike lane or the best lighting. So get to know your routes and put a little thought into how you want to travel. Be visible. It seems like every year we get pedestrians that are hit in crosswalks or long streets. And then we get our fair share of cyclists that are involved in accidents as well. So give a little bit of thought to how you're going to move around from your new residence to campus. And then travel with others if possible, especially when going out. A number of years ago, there was a student that wandered off and tragically was found deceased in the bay. And during that time, there was a lot of awareness kind of put on this issue of students going out after parties or going downtown or hanging out with friends and then getting back to their house, maybe intoxicated, but maybe not. And during that time, I was very, very aware of, in particular, that time I was aware of just how many students I saw walking by themselves, maybe not all there, and just how often we kind of, you know, dodge these bullets of people trying to get home safely. So we recommend that a lot of these issues can be kind of solved if we just travel with other people. And then, but if you can't, and I realize that's not always possible, let others know where and when you'll be. So again, when you live in a dorm or, you know, at your folks' house, it's easier to kind of touch base with people. But if you're the only one at your house when it comes time to leave and you're going to go out with somebody or somebody you just met or a party, maybe just make that point to text a roommate or let somebody know where you're headed off to. It's just, again, that extra step. Hopefully that information is never really needed, but it can definitely help keep people safe in the long run. And then if you're now driving, again, first year living on campus, a lot of people don't bring their car up, but if you now live somewhere where you need a vehicle to be able to get around, the other way, aside from a bike getting stolen or a party, the third way that most students meet a Bellingham police officer for the first time is their car gets broken into. From what I've seen, a lot of college students, especially if they live, say, in an apartment complex and they don't want to be hauling everything from their car up to their apartment and back and forth, but it's a lot more common for somebody to leave a laptop or a snowboard or a bike in the back seat, or just bags of clothes and what have not. So I recommend to leave your car as clean and empty as possible. That way, if a suspect or vehicle prowler is walking by and shines a flashlight, they look at your car and think that there's clearly no reason to take a risk breaking into the car and getting caught if they can't even see anything worth stolen. So most of the vehicle prowls we take, when there's a window broken, the thief could clearly see something that was worth taking that risk. So leave your car empty and try to avoid being a property crime victim. That's it for that. We kind of went through those topics quickly, but if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
I had a question about mail safety. I know our house here, I've lived here for like 2 years, and every year we've had some sort of mail stolen and reported it. And we've talked to our landlords about it, and they wanted us to pay for a better mailbox that would have like a lock. But we weren't able to do that at the time. So I was curious if there's other ways to protect from mail theft.
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Mail theft is really common. It's one of those crimes that honestly I never heard of before I became a police officer. But again, where there's a will, there's a way. And if a thief can forge documents, they're looking for checks. And if you're a college student, you might not have a lot of things set up on auto pay. And so there's a lot of checks coming in and out. So the safest way, I always tell people, and I follow this advice myself, is to drop your mail off that you're sending out to somebody. Drop it in a blue USPS mailbox. I never, ever, ever trust. In fact, I'm a little paranoid, so keep that in mind. But I just feel like anytime I put anything in my mailbox and put that red little flag up, I feel like that red flag just signals, hey, check the mailbox, see if there's anything valuable here. So I don't. Now, you can't necessarily control the mail that gets sent to you, right? Like a thief could swing by your mailbox and get to it before you can. And that is where those secure mailboxes, I really think, are worth the money. But check them frequently. Sometimes, especially if you're a college student, you're not expecting anything important. You might only check it once a week. And then the mail is going to build up. But so check it frequently and then never put anything of value in it that you're sending out. And that's kind of the best you can do. I'm all for your landlord putting in one of those secure mailboxes, though, because that drastically does cut down on the mail theft.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
I would think that
no-
having your lights on your porch might prevent people from stealing packages, maybe? Is that
Yes, I mean lighting. So there's a program called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. It's a worldwide program. We call it CEPTED for short. And in the world of CEPTED, good lighting is supposedly the #1 deterrent to crime. So that's a pretty powerful statistic. Whether that's true everywhere or not, I don't know. But I will tell you that I've seen firsthand the common thread between where crime occurs and then poorly lit areas. That doesn't mean that it's always going to work, but a good porch light, an effective porch light that you actually use goes a long, long ways. Package theft is getting to be more and more prevalent, especially as people are ordering online a lot more. And so it's just it's a crime of opportunity. And so the lighting, again, and pick those packages up. If you're expecting one, maybe reach out to a neighbor. Again, good reason to know your neighbors, but maybe try to monitor that. And I would leave packages out for as little time as possible. Okay, if there's no other questions, thanks a lot for having me.
all right, everyone? Thank you so much for coming, John and Corey. We really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us and hopefully preventing students from having any sort of negative experiences in their rental experience. So we really appreciate your time, and thanks so much to those students who came. And check out our
Thanks
website,
again.
Off Campus Living. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.